All right. So, since there aren't that many people looking at the streams live, and therefore, if people are looking at these streams, they're looking at them later, right? They are somewhere in the list of streams. They're behind where I am producing new content. It gives me it changes the relative effects of various factors, the relative strength of various effects. So the good thing about live streaming is really to have quick feedback on whether what you're doing is working, and see what the questions are, and be able to, change what the next stream is going to be about based on what the questions are on the previous stream, and also to have the answer to the most obvious questions packaged together with the video. In a video format, right? That people would just want to look at the video will still have maybe some of their most pressing questions answered. But there's also a disadvantage that, various factors fluctuate throughout the week, throughout the months, throughout the day, and many of these factors can influence the quality of the streams. I don't have time to sort of prepare before the streams. In a certain sense, these streams are like a first pass through a subject. They're like the best I can do without preparation. I mean, I did quite a lot of preparation a few years ago, and in a certain sense, every time I go to work and do some computational physics or some computational science, I prepare for the future stream. Just by learning more and seeing the practical consequences of the methods I use to do things, all of that good stuff. But I don't prepare specifically for the streams, just because there isn't that many hours in a day, right? And I've got some actual work to do, and depending on the time, I might have a lot of work to do, like a tremendous amount, and when the work that needs to be done isn't as high, then I try to just rest a little bit. So and it's a huge amount of work to do preparation. If you're trying to make the best possible presentation of a subject like computational physics. I think it's a really, really long process. It's not a process that one person can go through, and it requires lots of skills that are outside the actual understanding of the subject. It requires, maybe a better proficiency with English to, and like if one was to try to make the best job, right? You'd want to figure out what to say, what are the important points. Have a kind of structure that makes sure that there's this feeling that we're going somewhere, all the time, and there's no big gaping dead zone of nothing much happening, or just inefficient transmission of information. And you'd probably want to make multiple takes, a bit like movies, so you'd want to make it 50% of what it could be. I think it's pretty hard. It would, it certainly takes more than 1 hour of preparation to make an hour worth of content. To make it 90% of what it could be, I think it takes several people working very hard. If you look at what's required to make a movie is about the size of 2 streams. So, of course, I mean, if you put that amount of work into streams, I think it's a bit of overkill. I think now you're at the 99.999% mark, and it's not really worth it. So what you can do in a live stream is have a very authentic experience of the actual mindset, or the actual happening of these concepts in practice. What is it like to do that kind of work? What are the thought patterns that you go through? How do you explain stuff to yourself or to others? And a ton of practical details that don't directly have anything to do with the subject, but build up to make the difference between success and failure in almost any project. So that's what you get, the uncut version, just the it's like the most honest configuration. It's not for presenting the subject. It's optimized to really get at the actual process, not some person can be really good at computational physics and yet fundamentally misunderstand what's required to be good at computational physics. And the fact that he has to sort of filter out a lot of what makes him good at the subject while he's preparing the course, I think it leads in 99% of the cases to a bad outcome, just because very few people are better at understanding why they're good at something and understanding what's required for people to learn something than actually doing it. I think doing it is easier, and it's very few people understand 100% why what they do works. And those are some pretty rare people, and you might want to have that person look at multiple courses. But that's I'm kind of deviating from my original intention. So this the idea of the stream is like, okay, so you get the first pass through a subject, the kind of raw material, uh, which contains a lot of truths about the subject, not only um, static truths like here is how you find the root or the roots of a function, but dynamical truths about here's how you figure something out in this subject. Here is how you take something that doesn't really work and make it, incorporate it in a bigger system so that the whole thing really works. It's hard to get at all the things that come out, but it's a bit like filming someone while they are designing a car. You know, it's true that in terms of the time it takes to look at like the 3 years design process, the bandwidth of information is it is relatively low, or the speed at which you deliver information is relatively low. You know, you've got lots of dead zones and lots of things that are unclear unless you know the specific jargon or whatever the case may be. All right, it's but everything is there nevertheless, and many things are there that could not possibly have been there if someone had sat down and written a script. Like the good, the bad, the ugly is all there, and that is the raw material that I think you should try to preserve. Your goal when you try to make this higher level content with lots of, you know, effort behind it, would be to keep the integrity or honesty of you know, the first take. You know, if there's a mistake that happened, it means that at least for some people that part of the explanation is hard to get the first time. And so if you can sort of present that, I think it's useful to people to know that, yeah, that's a bit harder, that's a bit trickier, and it's okay to be confused about this. It's okay to not remember it perfectly, and here's this nice trick that you can use. Because no matter how many nice tricks you learn, there will always come a time when there's something tricky that you don't understand and you have to figure out. And I think this process of figuring things out is just a fundamental part of using a computer. You know, in some sense, a computer is like one of the most complex systems that you can easily get things done with. You know, a car is a pretty complex system. It's got like thousands of different parts that interact in all kinds of ways, and you certainly can do stuff with a car, right? But if you had to start from scratch with no understanding of what makes a car, or if you had a de-assembled car or whatever, and you wanted to work with the car, you know, not just use it for transportation, but say make it better in some way, or I don't know, maybe it's a bad example, but the basic idea would be that the time it would take you to the amount of work you have to put in before that pays off is huge compared to computers, where you can get